Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Friday night live stream here on the Sergeant Tank Pets YouTube channel. If you want to learn more about growing in the fish keeping hobby, and if you're interested in do-it-yourself projects, or maybe even want to learn how to breed certain species of fish, then I suggest that you go ahead and turn on that notification bell and make sure that you're subscribed. Go ahead, give it a like and a share. And with that being said, let's go ahead and see what we got going on in chat. So we got Alice Aquariums first in the house. How you doing? Another impromptu live stream here on Friday. So not sure exactly what the turnout's going to be, but feel free to go ahead and share. We'll spend the next hour or so chit-chatting. I figured it would be maybe an appropriate time. Talked about it in videos and live streams in the past. However, over the last year and a half or so, even a couple of years, been getting more and more questions as far as like starting a fish room. So, like I said, I figured I might as well designate a live stream to that. And hopefully we can be engaged here within chat. Let me know your guys' experience as well. And we got Corey Boy Aquatics second. We got Denny's Aquatics, Gone Wishing. How you doing, Charlie? Have a great dinner. I appreciate you stopping in and say hello. We got Angela in the house. It's been a little bit, Angela. I'm not sure. Hope all has been well with you. Let's see here. Skittles, if I'm saying that right. I think that might be the first time I've seen you in here, so welcome. I appreciate it very much. I usually like to give it a 5-10 minutes before we start really focusing too much on the topic, just because with notifications and all of that jazz. But if you guys have any general related fish questions for me, feel free to go ahead and put it here in the chat, and I can go ahead and take care of those first. Angela said, just working a bunch, all is good. Well, that's good to hear. You guys have any projects going on in your fish rooms? Anything exciting that you would like to share? I am new, trying to get back into the fish game. Awesome. That is our mission here on the platform, is to try to get other folks, especially those who maybe like yourself that have been out of it for a period of time, to get back into it. We all go through those seasons in life where things come up, and sometimes we can't. We have to prioritize. So I completely understand. We got Daryl Deemer in the house. How you doing, buddy? But yeah, if you guys want to check it out later on, I did a whole designated live stream kind of as a post American Live Bear Association follow-up. I do have to do some videoing updates in the fish rooms, as well as we'll be doing, of course, some summer ponds outdoors, that type of thing. So definitely expect some updates at some point over the next few months here. I will try to do my best. I know I keep saying that, but I don't want to make any promises either, just with life and everything in general. So that's why this is your guys' opportunity to try to take advantage of asking me questions. I just enjoy this platform much better. That way I can have a live interaction with you guys rather than have to answer things within the comments. I just feel it's a little bit more personable, and I think a lot of folks, when I started putting out video content, is what I was most known for, is doing these type of live Q&As and covering a lot of different topics. LS Aquarium said, I'm changing my 29-gallon from a community tank to a dwarf South American cichlid tank. Hey, that is awesome. What do you plan on doing, LS Aquariums? I'm interested to know as far as stocking-wise. We got MHow9, Mike in the house. How you doing, buddy? We got Joel from New Zealand. Always nice to see you in here, Joel. We got D with Down the Wormhole. Hello. Doing some water changes. That's awesome. Speak of fish room, how do you auto water top off a top of rack and for a sump? Absolutely. We can go ahead and get to that question. So I'm going to make a mental note of that one, and we will talk about auto water changes and all of that that good stuff. We got Candy in the house. How you doing, Candy? Angela said, "Love your Q&As." Well, thanks so much, Angela. I appreciate it. We got my brother in the house, Chris. How you doing, buddy? Let's see here. We got. Do you recommend painting the floor in your fish room or cement only? D is wondering. You can do either. There is a certain type of cement paint that you can use. My best recommendation is to use a sealant on concrete if it's going to be something that you plan on doing like in a pole barn setting. You can pick up a whole 5-gallon bucket of it for roughly, it's not cheap if you get the right stuff. But as some of you guys know, that is my background. I did concrete work by trade, as well as remodeling work, construction work, as well as many years in retail. I'd pretty much done it all at this point in my life. But yeah, so it's about $150 to $200. And that covers a lot of square feet, but you can always do that. I wouldn't necessarily recommend using, unless you have the appropriate ventilation, of using a sealant indoors because it can cause a lot of health issues if it's not done right. But you can use that stuff. I'm just not a huge fan of it, be completely honest with you. But I mean, there is cement paints, but I think over time, depending on use, they just don't last very long, and you would still essentially have to use a sealant over that as well if you want to protect it. And the issue is once you add a sealant, and if you paint your floor, there's no going back. You might as well tear out the entire concrete pad and re-pour it. Because by the time you try grinding it down, it's going to look like crap. It would take you forever, take a lot of man hours and a lot of money. So I guess really it probably sums it up, and it probably answering your question there for you. I would just leave it the way it is, and you can just add a top coat sealant if you're worried about as far as protection. Once you add that, you're pretty much good to go for 10, 15 years before you'd have to reseal it again. Let's see here. Pistogrammas and maybe germ blue rams. I'm thinking more cockatoides and other pistos that seem to catch my eye more than other pistos. That's awesome. We got Heather in the house. How you doing, Heather? We got Brendan in the house. How you doing? I'm wearing a really awesome t-shirt right now. So I'm sure we can look forward to that in a future video of yours, Flynn. So happy to help where I can. I want to tank up top, and when it down low at the bottom sump will turn on and fill up. We got Mark in the house. Big E's. How you doing, Mark? All right. So basically, as far as starting a fish room, so where does all of that begin? And I'm not going to go through all of my background and where it started. You can check in other videos. I've talked about it numerous times. The main thing is planning. Obviously, if you're in it for the long haul, I guess let's back up here a little bit. I can tell you from personal experience, really, I cannot put enough emphasis on the matter in the key points that I have here is if you're brand new into the hobby and you haven't been in it for very long, so let's say less than like a year or so, don't start a fish room. If you've been in it now a year and a half, 2 years, I still wouldn't be starting a fish room. Now, if you've been in it for 4 or 5 years, now you can start looking into planning. And the reason I say that is I see more and more often when people start big fish rooms, and a fish room to me is something of, let's say, 15, 20 plus tanks. And you may have one fish room, you may have multiple fish rooms. And I've seen it statistically, 80% or more of those individuals I've known that started fish rooms, and they've only been in it for 2 or 3, maybe even less than, let's say less than 5 years. So anywhere between, let's say, 2 and 5 years. Probably 80% of the people I know personally, or people I've just talked to and have heard, where they got themselves burned out. They got into a lot of breeding projects. Life comes up, whatever the case might be, and you get discouraged, and now you're selling off the entire fish rooms. Most of you guys are aware of the fact that, to me, fish keeping is much more than just breeding and keeping fish. It's very therapeutic, and I think that really holds true to a lot of us here in the hobby. And kind of the whole basis of why I started YouTube is not only to educate on different aspects of the hobby, but also the very important matter when it comes to the therapeutic aspect of it. I just wish that insurance companies would actually pay for, and that would be a long-term goal of mine, where I can actually verify and validate more on a clinical basis of the psychological component to fish keeping and how really it can save your life. And I'm not just being dramatic when I say that. It really is a lifesaver, not only for myself, but for a lot of people. So there's things that I have planned in the future to kind of be an advocate when it comes to those different aspects of the hobby. Well, with that being said, and I will get to your question here in regard to top-offs and just kind of my experiences when it comes to that. So kind of following those things that I mentioned as far as the amount of time you've been in the hobby. And the reason I always say be in the hobby for 1.5 years, 2 years before you even start really getting into breeding projects is, if you're brand new into the hobby, it's going to take that long before you're going to be comfortable enough, I feel, based on the average individual, to really start understanding even the basics of the nitrogen cycle, understanding the basics of how to treat disease if it arises, understanding the basics of how to test your water and what to look for, how to identify the psychology of the fish or whatever you're keeping. Understanding many different aspects. Within that time, you're now educating yourself just to be the basic fish keeper before you start really educating yourself to move forward and start a fish room. Is I would say most of us who start fish rooms do it from a breeding standpoint. I wouldn't say the majority of people that are keeping 20 plus aquariums are keeping 20 aquariums that are just like a focal point, meaning that they're just going in there and they're just simply, it's just, you know, more or less for display. I would say most folks who actually have a quote unquote fish room or fish rooms are into it for more of the breeding aspect of it. And I'm not really going to go into why one breeds. I've talked about that before. That would kind of be a whole nother conversation that we could cover later on more in depth. So planning. And there's a couple of different options that you have when it comes to planning. Now, do you plan on doing this within, let's say, your home? Some type of dwelling? Do you plan on doing it in a greenhouse? Do you plan on doing it in a pole barn or a shed or something like that? So there's a lot of different options that you have. And you have to understand certain ordinances in that too, in order to comply with the laws and regulations and maybe any stipulations that may be in place based on where you're doing it. Now, if you're in an apartment or even a duplex or even a condo, there may be a lot of stipulations there where it may hinder based on, let's say, through insurance and all of that and the potential for liability. So there's a lot of things that go into it besides just planning. That's all part of, besides just planning for, okay, this is how many tanks I want, this type of rack system I want. I hear people always talking about that stuff, but they don't think about the liability point of view when it comes to it. Electrical, plumbing, you know, hiring in the right people, contractors, if you really plan on going and doing it right. There's a lot of different things that you need, certain permitting in that if you plan on doing some restructuring within the home or adding on different electrical panels and that type of thing. Now, when it comes to deciding on your area. So identifying the area for which you want to start the fish room. So I'm going to use an example for us, such in a basement where I have concrete. Obviously, we live in Michigan. We have basements. A lot of places don't have basements, so you would have to plan elsewhere. Now, if you plan it on a main level or even in a anything elevated, obviously structural integrity is the most important. You have to realize that the amount of weight and can that wall handle that amount of weight, or can that subfloor or the footings handle the amount of weight that you plan on putting on there. So from an engineering point of view, there's a lot that also goes into it as well. So let's say you've talked to maybe some contractors, you've talked to people, other people who have fish rooms. You kind of have it in your mind of how many tanks you want. There's many different options when it comes to tanks. All really depends on your interest, depending on breeding. I myself personally like 40 breeders and 20 longs. Those would be my go-to, and even 10 gallons within a fish room because of what I breed. Now, if you're breeding larger species of certain cichlids or something like that, then you may very well have to go up to larger systems for grow outs. The other thing that oftentimes I hear is, now do you use some type of customized rack system? So whether if that be you build it yourself, have somebody else build it for you, to customize it to your liking, and that's fine. I myself like the opportunity for versatility, and I can tell you, I can almost guarantee you, if you're brand new getting a fish room, 5-10 years from now, I can guarantee it, 99% of the time, your interest within the hobby will change depending on what species you're keeping at that point, within a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5, 10, so on and so forth. I myself have done both ways. I myself within our fish rooms have it both ways. If I would change one thing, I would invest into doing some type of modular style rack system, whether if that be at Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, you order it, just because of the fact of versatility. The amount of return on investment or the amount of resale value, essentially you could sell that entire system as a whole through a local club, through Marketplace, on Craigslist, to another, to a friend, family, whatever it is. So the investment up front, and then let's say you decide 5 years later you want to sell. It's going to be a lot easier for you to go ahead and sell maybe as an entire rack system. You could split it off if you wanted to. So there's a lot of different options there for you. So my recommendation from having a fish room for over 13 years is the fact that if I would change one thing, I would have made that initial investment up front, because trying to work around customized systems can be very difficult. Now, if you're planning a business to where it's let's say it's a wholesale business, or if it's a farm type of business, or whatever the case might be there, then it may be wise to have customized systems. But for the average aquarist, most of us here aren't doing things at that level because of the amount of cost and the investment. Then I would look at it differently. Mine would be more VATS type of setups, that type of thing, versus just glass aquariums. So hopefully that makes sense. So now you've decided, you've gone through your planning stage. You decided whether if you want to do custom, not do custom, depending on the location. You've gone through all the legality aspects of it. Now with electrical. So without going too much in the depth with electrical, the number one thing that, whether if you have one tank or 100, you need to be utilizing a ground fault circuit interrupter. I hear more and more and more and more horror stories about a heater bursting or something like that happening. I can tell you, my life has been spared multiple times, as well as the life of my fish or livestock that I'm keeping. Never once I've had live hot wires drop directly while I'm actively involved in that system, instantly trips. So don't get confused with a surge protector. Get rid of that garbage. No surge protector. They're useless. They're junk. Get a ground fault circuit interrupter. The ones that I recommend, the ones that we've sold on our website that I've been testing and using for years, are they're actually, you can get them at Home Depot. Less than 15 bucks. You can run essentially an entire fish room off from one of those. And I've tested it. You can get between 12 and 1400 continuous wattage on a standard 15 amp circuit using one of those default for like $12.97. They're a portable unit, and you can do a GFCI where it's you can have an electrician come in and install it hardwired into your system that way. But these do just as good of a job as those other ones. And I don't know why everybody's not using it. That will, in almost all cases, 99% of the time, there's that 1% chance that there may be some issues there if the product was defective or whatever the case might be. But I've used them multiple times, and I have multiple ones running. Never once have I ever had an issue. So I can put my stamp of approval on it. But I'm just telling you, you should always be acting, obviously, with good common sense and good judgment. Don't do those things that I mentioned. Do as I say and not as I do. Obviously, having live hot wires that are appropriately done, I mean, that's just foolish all around. But I'm just telling you the reality of it. It has worked for me multiple times, and I've been using them for years. So other than electrical, really, there's a lot of variables that go in there. I'm not an electrician, even though I'm very familiar with it, but I just can't advise due to the fact that I'm not, licensed in that field. So now, same thing with plumbing. Plumbing is just a tedious process. So we're going to kind of go in here to that question in regard to now top-offs. So as far as top-offs, if you're using, let's say, a 12-rack system. So if I remember the question right, you're talking about top-offs from the very top tank. And then basically, obviously, top-off is a way that you have some source of water coming in order to top off the dilution that took place within that specific ecosystem or whatever aquarium that you're using. I want to talk a little bit, since we're talking about top-offs, the key differences between a auto top-off system and a continuous drip system. Is I hear more and more and more, and I think that there's a lot of confusion and there's major differences between the two. So an auto top-off system is, let's say you've diluted. Water has been diluted, or maybe you're even removing a portion of water once a day, twice a day. Maybe it's on a timer system. It can get quite complex. And the key differences between the two is you're not doing it on a continuous over a 24-hour time frame. I highly suggest, longevity-wise, the amount of variables that you see versus a continuous, and I've done both and I've tested both. In my experience, you have a lot less issues with consistency during a continuous drip. Let's say a half-gallon drip emitter, 1 gallon drip emitter per hour. You can do a quarter-gallon drip emitters. You can get them custom. You can order them. So there's a lot of options depending on your stocking load, how much water you're changing, that type of thing. So I'm not going to go into all of that. I've talked about it many different times on other live streams. So again, hopefully that makes sense. Basically, you might have something on timer. Maybe you're manually hitting the switch to now you're topping off all of your systems. Now you need something. Chances are, if you're doing a top off and if you're doing it right, you should essentially have something in order to discharge that water. So maybe your system is tapped. Maybe it's drilled. Maybe it's using some type of basic PVC overflow. There's thousands of videos out there on how to do those. It really comes down to I've done both. I have drilled and I have PVC overflows. I personally, instead of using the white PVC, you can use like a Krylon Fusion paint. In my experience, eventually certain fish, it just ends up flaking off. So what I prefer to use is I go to Home Depot in the irrigation department and I get the black piping is what I get. It's not going to be as rigid as like your Schedule 40 PVC, like your standard white PVC. That's a much cheaper. You can order black PVC. You're generally not going to be able to go in and get the appropriate one that you're wanting to use without special ordering it. So that's kind of a tip there for you. I don't think I ever did a specific video on it, but if you want something black that kind of just blends in and looks a little bit better and it's way more cost effective and you don't have to wait around to have something special ordered, and if you kind of just, like most of us, you kind of want it yesterday type of thing, just follow the same concepts from, like I said, 1,000 different videos out there on how to do PVC overflows. Just use that material versus getting like a Schedule 40 PVC and painting it. I mean, you can do it either way. And now if you're using a PVC style overflow system, something in order to get the water out, my number one recommendation with that, it's not 100% fail proof, however, you're 98%, is get a, we also carry them on the website, so hashtag free plug, I guess, for myself, is they're the TomTom, they're the auto dosing units. They're very, very good. I have several of them running on each one of our PVC overflows where the tank isn't drilled. So hopefully that somewhat answers the question. I see chat's kind of going, so I'm going to take a quick pause and a breather. I'm going to turn my attention to chat kind of based on some of the things I've already covered, answer any questions here, and then I'll continue on. How you doing, Lumpy Dog? We got Jeff Allen. Hello. We got Multi-Tank Addiction. How you doing, buddy? We got Kevin in the house. How you doing? Let's see. We got Dank Tanks in the house. Where to begin? Let's see. Victor, how you doing, buddy? All right. My brother's wondering how he can convince our parents to let him get in the aquarium. I don't know. Believe it or not, there, Chris, where it all started was I was about 8 years old with a 29-gallon system. So at one point, believe it or not, there was an aquarium in that house. But that was a lot of years ago. All right, we got Turbofish. How you doing, buddy? Jeff is wondering as far as my thoughts on using rainwater. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of veteran aquarists. I myself use. I keep it right at 0 to 1 TDS. I just switch up the Micron filters when need be, but I got a really nice RO unit, brand new RO unit that I'm still have to do a video on. It was actually given to me by Radical Reefs, which is I'll go ahead and link that once this is done, so definitely check it out. He's been putting out some video. Yeah, he blessed me with a right at the Aquatic Experience. He ended up winning this RO. He actually purposely put in, I think I shared this a little bit, but anyway, he put in one ticket and happened to be his ticket that won that back last year at the Aquatic Experience. And he told me, I had put in like 15, 20 bucks worth because I really wanted a nice RO system to incorporate into the fish rooms, and he ended up winning it. So that was pretty cool. But I did do a video months back when I installed it, but I still have to edit that video and get it uploaded. But with that being said, you definitely can use rainwater if you're running off from like asphalt shingles, just due to any maybe trace elements, that type of thing. I would recommend using like a pre-filter. You can make your own, is what I would advise doing, just to maybe get rid of any of those trace elements that may pose an issue. My first recommendation is to, if you're using any type of distilled RO water, rainwater, is to get yourself a TDS meter to check the over total dissolved solids, just to ensure that it's, you know, right close to zero as possible. But yeah, it's completely fine. MJ Aquatics, hello. Now, as far as pollution when you're using rainwater, yeah, what you would typically do is get yourself a 55-gallon drum rather than using like a barrel. Then it's sealed off. And that will also, because if you have an open barrel and you don't have any type of agitation going on in there, you are going to have mosquitoes depending on the climate that you're in, which is going to kind of defeat the purpose. I'm all about mosquito larvae. I've done a video on it. I have one going right now, but there is a lot of stipulations and ordinances based on having any type of standing water either. So you definitely have to check your local ordinances to ensure that it's you know, because of West Nile potential and all of that stuff, especially people that have pets and that type of thing. So you just want to use good judgment and common sense when it comes to that. But I would have some type of surface agitation, unless it's a sealed barrel, maybe like a designated rain barrel. I would go on Marketplace, get yourself a food grade. Most of those are either holding some type of syrup or like vinegar. And, you know, most of us, including myself, I've talked about that before, how I sanitize all of our equipment and nets is I use white distilled vinegar in a spray bottle. So essentially you can just, and then you can check if there's any type of trace elements. Once you rinse it out really good, then just use a TDS meter. That's where TDS meters really come in handy. It's going to tell you, obviously, if you're at zero, then you can know right at that point you really don't have much to worry about. Just make sure it's food grade, and you're completely fine. But I've used them lots through the years, and I currently have a few going. I got two for an RO that I use indoors, and then one for pre-dechlorinated water that we also have in our fish rooms. All right. We got Mark Sark in the house. How you doing, Mark? And if I miss any questions, guys, please go ahead and leave it here in chat again. So I'm at the bottom. So we left off on, I think we were talking about top offs, that type of thing. So anybody that's chiming in here now, go back. Once I edit this in a day or two, it'll be re-uploaded. And just keep in mind, any videos, or I'm sorry, any live streams that I've been doing the last month or so, if you check in the description of those live streams and you're like, hey, I thought most live streams are like an hour long, maybe even a little bit longer, and let's say it's less than like 15, 20 minutes, that type of thing. No, I can't guarantee every time, but most of the time I'll go ahead and I'll add a link in the description for the full live stream so you can watch the whole thing. It just wouldn't necessarily, because I do it as unlisted, which then really isn't going to show up in like my repertoire videos, if that makes sense. So it's exclusively to those who have this specific URL link. That's why the option there for unlisted works well. And you can still monetize and all of that stuff with that, but that's what I'm doing. Finding I enjoy it much better than you know, I'm not like losing subscribers. I'm kind of just finding that little loophole there in the system to make everybody happy, make myself happy, make the viewers happy, make YouTube happy. Everybody can be happy in the end. Just a little bit more time consuming because I have to edit it, and I just try to, in the edited version, the one that you would actually see when it's uploaded, like I said, wouldn't be like the full hour live stream or whatever time it is. It's going to be generally, I try to get it less than 20 minutes. If I can get it closer to 15 or even 12 minutes, perfect. If not, I just try to get exactly the information that needs to be. So during that specific video, you're not going to necessarily hear me talking too much back and forth with those in chat. So I just want to clarify that. Like I said, the link would be in the description of those live streams, so you can check it out. All right. Let's see here. Joel said, I enjoy the rewatch of Sergeant and Dank Tanks put up this week. Yep, finally got that one. It was a few days overdue, but better late than never. Let's see. 4 stakes, tarp tied to each corner off the ground. Hole in the middle of tarp with string and rock hanging from it. Fill any tub you got in a downpour. There you go. That'll work. KG said, play us a tune on the guitar. Let's see. Dank said, by the way, Sarge made my thumbnail. Yeah, I've helped quite a few people out with their thumbnails. I always tease because I say I put more time into other people's thumbnails than I do my own. But yeah. I don't mind. I'm not opening that door for anybody though. Yeah. And I'm not going to start. I mean, I'm not at that point where I'm going to be of service. Like, hey, I'll do a thumbnail for like $5 or whatever. That'd be nice, I guess. Maybe I can offer that service later on, but it's a good way for me to learn. That's why I do it. Because the more I do them, the more I'm going to be able to get better, more efficient with it, that type of thing. So I don't mind. Don't mind every once in a while. Like I said, I'm not going to be doing them just for anybody. The ones I do them for are people that, have been around for like pretty much since the beginning. Mimi's Aquatics is in the house. How you doing, Mimi? Jeremy gives us manicures on our thumbnails. I've never changed mine except for like 2 years ago where it was a close-up on my face. Dank said the one we made is a game changer. I'll be afraid that too many tanks would take away from enjoyment of any one tank. Fish would just become a collection instead of living things that bring enjoyment and relaxing calm. Yep, you have to realize, I mean, our club is big on cares and preservation. Talked about this a little bit with buddy of mine through the club. So don't get confused between the preservation of a certain species. So if you go on cares preservation on their website, and really the whole basis around cares is certain either ones in wild that are near extinct or endangered to potentially becoming extinct. There's a program in place where they coordinate with a lot of different local clubs in certain cities, and ours is one of them, to where you develop a program where you're able to start breeding these endangered species. Depending on what it is, there's a lot of them, probably more than what you guys even realize. The same thing with plants. Don't get it confused with invasive species. There's a complete difference. I see a lot of people that think that they're doing something wrong because it's on the cares list. You would have to go on there, really read through the whole basis behind it. It is nothing new. It's been around for many years now, and there's more and more things being added to it. So don't be confused between invasive species and endangered species. An invasive species, nobody should be keeping in the hobby. It's an invasive species for a reason. Like I still see people selling the Clark eye species, which is a crayfish that I used to breed and I kept for a lot of years. I've done videos on it. Don't be confused with the Alani. The Alani, to my understanding, is not listed as an invasive species as of yet. However, the Clark eye, about 2 or 3 years ago, and I found out because I wasn't paying attention to the list at the time through our club, because I had brought one in to auction off and found out beautiful electric orange, and basically found out that obviously it was listed as an invasive species. So you just got to be careful with that stuff. If it's something you're already in possession of, then obviously just hold on to it or make sure that it's rehomed to a very appropriate hands, I guess. Really know how else to put it. Somebody who is seasoned, depending on what species it is. But yeah, I feel that there's a lot of things that people are keeping in the hobby that should be listed as an invasive species, especially the amount of damage potentially that it could be doing, more damage than good. So just thought I would kind of throw that out there to you. Corey Borey said, I'm looking at putting a tank on a top rack and drip 1 gallon per hour, but have the tanks on the rack drip back into the sump. But how do I top off the top tank for the sump slowly to top? Okay, I'm trying to decipher what you're saying. I believe I understand. So the first question I have for you, Corey, is it going to be a centralized system? So let's say if you have 10 or 12 tanks on that system, it doesn't really matter how many tanks you have. The key thing is, are you filtering all of those tanks one down to the next, and then you're also topping off that entire system, or are each one of those individual? Because when you say sump, I'm assuming that entire rack system is on the sump. And then I can explain to you how to go about doing it. Evan always dropping in here. How you doing, IFG? 2 things. Number 1, Jeremy is a man. Hey, I try to be. Second, I'm off to dinner and a movie with the fam. Good night, people. Enjoy the stream. Thanks so much, Evan. I appreciate it as always. Kang Lee. I don't think I said hi, Kang. You might be lurking. I think we got ourselves a lurker. He's going to Patco to buy all the Go shrimp. Are they still like 29 cents or something? I don't remember. Skittles said we all lurk sometimes. Oh, yeah. I would say I'm one of the OGs of lurking. Yep, I did a lot of lurking. I still do. Yep, I think most of us are usually in the fish room, probably when we're listening to these. Since we have 40 watching, what I would like to know right now is I need to figure out why it's not working. I will figure it out. So just give me some time. I will link down in the description too, so you guys can check that out later if you want to. But join the Sergeant Tank Facebook group. So I'm trying to get more. That we have about 480 members on there right now, which is phenomenal. But I want to continue to grow that. So oftentimes I'll do more incentives through the Sergeant Tank. I do more live how-tos. I do more live fish room updates. I do more of that stuff over there. It's just kind of a way in order for me to interact with those in it, and it comes off a little bit better as far as the streamability of it. So if I live stream via my phone and I walk around, the connection issue that I have because of the bandwidth and everything, and even adjusting the settings, I haven't done it in a bit of time, but it seemed as if it was just very choppy. And not that Facebook is perfect, however, I find it's much better. So that's why I do. If you want to know more about what's going on in the fish rooms, that is the place to be. I'm trying to grow that over there. Like I said, I will try to get back into the groove of things of doing auctions on there, of stuff that we have here that we don't necessarily offer on the website, and that type of thing. So like I said, check it out. But getting back to my point is I'm going to do a poll. So I did it through my phone. However, once it gets to that, I know that there's been some issues with polls in the past. I haven't personally done a poll on Facebook, but the question was going to be, or the questions I should say, is if you guys had to choose, talking specifically here with YouTube, as I've done so many videos, we put out now, I probably have done well over 150 to 200 live streams, and 50% of those I've deleted in the past. So that would be one of them. So I guess, would you guys rather see, let me know right now in the chat, would you rather see fish room updates, how-to tutorials on breeding, or live Q&As? That was going to be my 3 areas there for the poll that I was going to ask people. And like I said, I'll try to figure out the poll situation, get it up on Facebook, and try to get people engaged over there. But you know, I want to be able to do something that is not only with longtime followers of the channel, but anybody new coming into the channel. I know what I need to do to grow the channel. I can follow the trend. I mean, obviously, if you want to grow on YouTube, just follow what the trend is. I mean, consistency obviously is key, and I understand all of those things, but I want to do ultimately what the viewers want to see. And, you know, looking at analytics and looking at some of the other videos I've done, you know, it really isn't necessarily one's better than the other. From a revenue standpoint, not including super chats, I mean, I've had live streams that have gained more in AdSense than I have actual edited video. But I really think a lot of that just comes down to planning, and, you know, really just kind of taking advantage of the tools that are there for us here on YouTube. But yeah, so I'll be curious to know what you guys would like to see. Kyle said all of the above. Yeah, essentially, you know, I would like to do all of them, but, you know, I just being completely honest, I'm just not a huge fan of you know, I can do videoing all day long. That's easy. It's too time consuming for me when I've been a stay-at-home dad for a lot of years. I just don't have the time to do it right now. So I need to identify if I'm going to be somewhat consistent, if I can even get to a goal of doing 1 a week, where at one point in my repertoire, so essentially my recommendation for anybody, if you want to be consistent, is to have at least 10 videos stored up in your YouTube video log, to where you can have either scheduled if something comes up. Maybe they're already, portion of those are scheduled. And that's what I used to do, is I used to have at least 10 ready to go. So if anything came up, they would already be ready to go, and that type of thing. But yeah, so at this point, I don't really have anything. So my way to try to be somewhat engaged is to do a live stream. And, you know, I could, you know, be dishonest about it and say, hey, I have all these videos and blah, 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 and make up excuses. But I think, as most people know, that I'm very transparent in that way. I'm not going to make up excuses. I might have, like I said, that one RO. Other than that, I don't recall having any videos in my storage, in my drive, that are ready to be edited. And I pretty much have put out anything that I have, and that was done months ago. So to try to get current, I need to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm not a huge fan of doing fish room updates. I think that they're completely boring. But again, what I feel and what the general public views may be completely different. Now, a lot of the how-to tutorials on how to breed have been successful. Not every one of them, but a lot of them people enjoy. But that's not always for everybody either. And it's not like I'm going to be doing unboxing videos. Those just get boring. They get redundant. You know, if I do have some video. I take that back now. What I'm thinking about unboxing, what I'll probably end up doing is jamming those all in one video. Whether if it be livestock or plants, in order to support the individuals, even though it wasn't necessarily a sponsor thing, but I do want to be able to support in that way, any way that I can. And I do need to get to that at some point. So expect that at some point in the future. And like I said, it's probably just going to be a quick B-roll of all these different, probably like a voiceover type of thing. And, you know, I know a lot of people enjoy the unboxing videos, but yeah. We got Angela in the house. How you doing, buddy? Dank said Q&A with special guest. How-to vids and live Q&A. All the above. More live streams. I mean, my roots and what I went back for and what I was most known for was doing lots of live streams. I used to do probably not necessarily consecutive, but I did 10 to 12-hour live streams. It was not uncommon for me when I first started in one day. And the issue is obviously that hurts your channel in the long term. And especially at that time, I didn't have nearly as many subscribers, and I was getting a lot of flack from it. People that knew me on a personal level and other people like, why are you doing so many live streams? So I was like, darn if I do and darn if I don't, even though I see everybody now jumping on the bandwagon, all doing live streams. So I just kind of got over it. So that's why now you see me doing one live stream a week or maybe two. You know, I'm really not going to push it much more than that. And yeah, so you just kind of you learn to deal a little bit with that drama, but you eventually get burned out with it, because ultimately at the end of the day, and we all know this, you're going to have your hardcore supporters, and then you're going to have ones that are just going to want to complain, and then you're going to have ones in between. So I can't please everybody all the time. That's why I thought maybe if I focus on something that 90 or 80% of the viewers would like to see, then I can kind of use that later on when I know that I'll end up getting flack from it. I'll be like, hey, 80% of the audience right here on this video wanted to see option B or option A, that type of thing. So I love unboxing videos. I know a lot of people love unboxing videos. All right. Looks like I missed a super chat here from Bob Kaler with a $10 super chat. Vids like upcoming Sevrum tutorial. Obviously, it will include some fish room inclusion. You should share your experience and knowledge. Yes, Bob, I do owe you. I owe not only you, but I do owe quite a few people, especially when it comes to Sevrums. So, yep. I do need to get on that for sure. The main thing, when it comes to the way I educate, and again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I try to do it in a way where I can make it somewhat relatable, I guess you would say. So I need to really not just pull out the video. I need to think it up in a way to where it will make sense. So maybe use certain objects in order to maybe describe what I might be talking about. Because especially with Severums, I've talked about it a bunch, and that really comes down to the essentials behind dietary requirements and the needs in order to promote good life and sustainability with that fish, especially Severums, and some of your other cichlids as well, like your blood parrots, Oscars, even your Acara. So many different South and Central American cichlids. When it comes with specifically hole in the head, I don't hear a lot of people talk about it. I've talked about it a bunch, and I've talked about how I treat it in the most effective way of doing it. However, the way I treat it is kind of more a surgical approach, and I'm not just going to share that here on YouTube. That'll be something I would share over on the Facebook, so stuff like that. Because if I share it here and there's 3,000 people or whatever, you know, I don't want to send the wrong message to think that just anybody can do it. You know, it really comes down to somebody's comfort level in that type of thing. And a lot of people just aren't even comfortable holding a fish. That's why you see, like, when I've done unboxing videos and I've talked about the differences between why I use my hands versus using a net method, especially with larger. Now, if you're talking shrimp or fry, that's where common sense comes in. It's kind of hard to obviously obtain that in your hand. Not that you can't do it. And there's reasons of why I do that. So there is a lot of videos I could do as far as how I introduce livestock within a system. And a lot of that really is just a very slow process in the overall introductory phase. So if I'm taking, let's say, a Central American cichlid with a South American cichlid, and I'm trying to get them coexist together, or maybe even an African cichlid in a South or Central American cichlid, I really do the exact same thing with any one of those fish. Is just a very slow process in how I go about introducing. And most of the time, it's always going to be done with my hand, whereas I'm not using a net. Now, like a pictus or, you know, certain catfish, because of the barbs, and they can, if they do poke you, it's not going to feel very good, and they can leach a small toxin. They do have a certain, some of them may be slightly carrying certain toxins to where it could give you an allergic reaction. So again, a lot of that stuff is just really just common sense. But yeah, so there's a lot of videos that I would like to do. I just know the reason I hold back from doing those specific videos is simply because I know how the internet reacts to them. Not that I'm necessarily afraid of the you know, I put out a video on a surgical procedure I did on a Lucipennis. You can check it out. It's still out there on the platform. It didn't get a ton of views, but it's out there. It's out there on how I treated an ulcer on that specific fish. But I mean, yeah. So I mean, there's reasons of why I hold back certain things that I don't share. It's not that I'm trying to withhold anything, but yeah. So we got a $4.20 from Chris Jobs Aquariums. Thanks for all the knowledge, bro. You are more than welcome. Thanks for the support. Love amateur aquarists sharing their joy, success, and unfortunate failures. YouTubers focus on growing a channel for the purpose of making money and continuously begging and annoying me. I disagree. I don't think that's with everybody, and I hope that isn't necessarily the case here for us at Sergeant Tank. Hopefully that's not the case here, because I very seldomly ever share much about business. I really don't. We as a family have invested into the community thousands. And just, you know, I've lost a ton of money. And I don't look at it as a loss. To me, I would rather pay it forward because I know, you know, that's just the way our family is. And but yeah, so hopefully it never comes off that way here with our channel. But I don't necessarily disagree with some of the channels out there. I think it really comes down to, you know, where the channel is and kind of the basis behind the channel. We got $3.33 from Swisky. If you guys haven't checked out the video over on Corvus's channel, definitely check it out. He says hi, and it was hilarious video. Basically, it was like him hijacking the channel, and it was funny. All right. Been lurking, setting up tanks and moving fish around, Chris said. That's cool. It's always nice. Let's see here. Mimi's Aquatic said, I really appreciate the effort you put into explaining things and helping us, especially your tips and advice. Seriously, Jeremy. Well, thank you so much, Mimi. Angela said, I mostly just enjoy Jeremy and, of course, Dabs by Joel. He can go a little too dab crazy. He's gotten better, though. I will give him that. Just trying new stuff out. That's always awesome. Let's see. Lumpy Dog, just clarifying. I know it wasn't, but yeah, my comment was not directed at Sergeant Tank Pats. No worries. But yeah. Let's see here. The Mississippi Cat said, somehow I've just recently discovered the amazing Aquarius on YouTube. It's been really enjoyable going through all the content for ideas for my personal and classroom tanks. Thanks from a lurker. Well, thank you so much for the support. Yeah, I'm all about Pats in the Classroom. We've supported that as well with our own children in their school. I definitely feel that there should be more of it. We're not just a family of aquatic life. We're a family of many different pets. Anybody that knows us and have been here would say it's like a zoo. Not only do we have 4 kids, but we have we got a lot of pets. Anyone want to go fish collecting in Hawaii in June? I don't want to go alone. Man, I wish if I was physically and financially off, Jimmy, I would jump on that bandwagon in a second. I would love to do that. I would love to do the Peru thing. I miss doing all of that kind of stuff. Let's see. And I know HC's in Hawaii. All right. This stuff is amazing. I don't know if you guys have tried it or not, but it's the Rockstar Pier Zero. My wife just got this stuff this past week, and this is a silver ice. It's 250 milligrams of caffeine. And I drink a lot of caffeine, especially with coffee. It has 0 calories. And it has some other good benefits in it, too. It's got B12. I mean, 100% B12. Obviously, it is carbonated. But, I don't know. I enjoy it. Tastes good. The Fish Loft. So, any questions, you guys, in regard to the topic as far as like starting a fish room? I mean, if you have any specific questions for me, definitely please let me know. This is your guys' opportunity to go ahead and ask away. Thank you for the super chatters. Hopefully, I didn't miss any super chats. I apologize. I'll always make up for it, though. I don't have that screen up here in my Creator Studio. While you guys are chatting here, I just let me pull it up real quick. I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. All right. So the super chats we had was from Bob Kaler with a $10 super chat. Jobs Aquariums Tanks with a $4.20 super chat. And Swisky with a $3.33 super chat. So thank you to each one of you guys. I definitely appreciate the support. And we are past the hour mark. So this is usually where I say my goodbyes, take any final questions that you guys may have. Thank you for the moderators as far as sharing the links and all that you guys do. Not only support this channel, but all of the channels out there. Definitely thank you guys very much. If I missed any questions, you can always leave it down in the comments once this video is uploaded. So Angela is wondering, what is the best size tanks to start a fish room? My recommendation is a 20 long or a 40 breeder, depending on what species you're breeding. But 20 longs are one of my favorite layouts. If you can afford it, 33 longs or 40 long is also a very nice footprint. But 40 breeders, if I could afford it, I would probably do all 40 breeders, to be honest with you. It just takes up more real estate. We got Priscilla in the house. What's going on here? I protest whatever it is. Of course you do, Priscilla. The Fish Loft said, #1 multi-tank filtration single system sump or freshwater. Are you talking about filtration? Sponge filters all day long. Just because I know the amount of expense when you're on I'll just say 100% can guarantee it. It's going to happen. Disease will happen depending on, especially if you're breeding and you're keeping things for any prolonged period of time. Disease eventually will break out. I've had it happen on central systems in trying to treat a 1,500 gallon or a 2,000 gallon full sump system. It works great when you're breeding certain species of fish, because of the pheromones that are released within the water, can also a lot of times inhibit breeding. That's why a lot of people do it. However, for me personally, I run everything individual. No more sumps, and I probably never will, to be honest with you. I know the amount of expense that can go into it. So if I had to choose one, it would be, and you guys can definitely check it out. I don't know why more people aren't using it. It's by far the most cost effective. I don't know if anybody, I'm sure there's videos out there. I don't really go searching. Usually if some idea comes to my mind, I'll test it for a while. And if I can put my stamp of approval on it, and if I feel it's going to save people costs, I'll go ahead and upload it. But there may be other videos out there. Who knows? I don't really care either way. But it is a diaphragm style pump that's rated for 8 devices. It's less than $100 for that entire system. And I've ran almost 80 individual aquariums off from that one pump with no issues at all. And you guys can definitely check it out. I did a whole video designated to it, and to run basically, and keep in mind it's on a loop system. So I'm running 3 different fish rooms essentially off from that one. And the entire loop is about 100 feet from start all the way once it connects to finish, maybe 75 feet. I can't remember exactly. So that kind of gives you an idea, but the whole basis is the engineering concept that goes behind it. Really fine tuning, playing with the back pressure of it and reducing it. So the amount of pressure when it comes out is basically the way it flows through there. And so instead of using like an 1.5-inch style pump or a 2-inch pump or 1 3/4 inches with like a blower, that type of thing, you're reducing it down to a 1/2 inch irrigation tube. And then you just use the tap fittings that go into the irrigation tube. So the entire thing I wanted to do on a budget, because I know a lot of people are getting into fish rooms. And like I said, I don't know how many people are using it. I don't know why more people don't use it. But you're getting essentially the same exact benefits from that is what you would by spending $300 or $500 on, a very expensive pump. Obviously, I know that businesses or suppliers of those pumps probably aren't too fond of the idea, because if more people jumped on the bandwagon, obviously they probably wouldn't be selling as many of those larger pumps. But yeah, let's see. Heather's wondering how big the fish rooms are and about how many tanks do you have. Well, we got about 80 tanks running active. I've have a lot of those I don't include. I have many more tanks than that aren't active, but we're close to 75 or 80. I haven't done a full count because I've been kind of downsizing, upsizing to a little bit larger systems, that type of thing. So as far as the one fish room in off to the right of me, that one is roughly about 20 by 15, so 20 feet by 15 feet. And then the smallest fish room where it all started, that is 10 by 10. And then our family room, which I really don't count as a fish room, some people would. That is part of the loop system, though. And obviously our family room, I really won't count that as a fish room. Those are our display tanks. And that's roughly about 20 by 18. It's the pump I'm getting. Thank you for the tip, Jeremy. You're welcome, Mimi. And the main thing with that system is to manipulate the back pressure. Just raise up your even if you're using a weighted base sponge, just move it up closer to the surface. Get yourself a air control flow valve on each one of those, and then you can fine tune it because the amount of back pressure and depending on where the system's at, you're just going to have to fine tune it, play around with it. But if you notice with really any pump, you have it too far down in the amount of back pressure, depending on what the pump is rated, just simply manipulate it by raising it up closer to the surface. And then what you can do is you can actually, instead of even using a clamp, the fittings that go in there are pretty solid once you use just your standard 1/4-inch airline tube. Just cut it to the height that you need and then go maybe an inch or two below that in order for dilution to kind of play. And what that will help do is that kind of disrupts the surface. Now, as far as your overall beneficial bacteria, by having it at the base or more towards the surface, it's really not going to matter. I mean, you guys are keeping up your maintenance and all of that stuff anyways. I mean, most people have their sponge filters towards the bottom in order to kind of recirculate things and all of that. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to matter either way. 80 big shot, Priscilla said. Actually, if at this point I'm too invested into it, but if it was me, I would stick with. I'll put it to you this way. I can guarantee you I will be more effective with my 10 by 10 fish room with 30 or 40 tanks than I would with the 2 fish rooms with 80 tanks. I could do way more breeding projects. I could save a lot of cost. I would focus more of my attention on breeding projects because it would be in one space rather than being dispersed all throughout. It would be way more organized and just overall more efficient. Because I'm bringing in now, not importing, but because sometimes I bring in and I try to support other hobbyists as far as rehoming, that type of thing. So now that's why I have other systems. Same thing with quarantine. It's do I shut the one down and just maintain the other one? I've thought about it before, but like I said, because of the basis behind what I'm doing at this point in the hobby now, I'm just going to keep what I have. Then I have the amount of space I need to introduce things and move things around. But yeah, I mean, having everything in one room from a breeding standpoint, way more effective and way more efficient. You don't need you don't need 100 tanks to be effective when it comes to breeding. You really don't. Priscilla, I will refrain from asking that. But hey, there's options for you. Another $10 super chat from Daryl Deemer. Thank you so much, Daryl. I appreciate it very much. Priscilla said she got 16 and maxed out on maintenance time. Fishloft said I grabbed 6 55-gallon plastic barrels today. I'm on a well. I'm really working on a system. I only need to add water from pump off well, then treat at last barrel, loop it all back together, drilled out. Very nice. All right, you guys. So to reach at that point in the night, I want to thank you guys. Thank you, everyone, for the super chats. Like I said, if you're not following over on Facebook, simply head on over there. Just put in Sergeant Tank. You'll see our logo pop up. Answer the 3 questions if you're not part of it. And either myself, one of the moderators, will go ahead and approve you guys. And with that being said, you guys, make it a great rest of your night. And we'll talk to you on the next one.